everybody. It's so good to see all of you, except I can't see any of you. And this is LOA Losers. I'm Tracy, and Lydia is with me. Hey, Lydia, what's
Hello.
up?
What's up, my dear Tracy?
And we were talking about before we started the show that Lydia brought up, which I think is a great topic, that we would like to talk about feeling not good enough.
Yes, that not good enoughness, emotion, negative emotion. What's the definition? First of all, what's the definition of not good enough? Like in English, what's the definition? Not good enough. What would you say is the definition? To feel
Oh
not
my
good enough.
gosh. Um,
That's a very good
because I want to say, well, you're not good enough. It's like,
question.
that's a great, not being good enough. The definition of that would be, I think where you're going is that obviously you're not worthy. You're not
Okay,
doing it right. I mean, not good enough means you're not doing it right.
perfect.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you're not doing it good enough. You're not
According
perfect.
to the metrics or like to the some criteria, right? And the question just popped, okay, right here, right now. Like, what's the definition of not good enoughness? Yeah, like according to some criteria, for example, at school, like with the tests and
Oh,
exams, is like, right? Go ahead.
yeah, and um, I've got to bring it up, audience, and I know it might trigger some of you, but religions.
Oh, yes. Thank you for saying. That was my that's the origin. And yes, audience, please, it's my perception, Tracy's perceptions. But yes, I was born and raised Catholic, and yes, my not good enoughness is rooted in there. Thank you for
Yes,
bringing it to the table.
and I was born in uh, Christian Baptist,
Okay.
and we were taught that we were born not worthy, and that
Exactly.
and that we're here on this planet to prove our worthiness, that we're good
Yeah.
enough to make it to the kingdom of heaven, you know.
Yeah. You need
And
to prove
so,
something.
yeah, so it's pretty. I mean, I don't know people out there, audience, but whatever spirituality religion that you were involved in was probably had a flavor of that somewhere, because
Mhm.
I've never met anyone that said, "Oh, that told me their background in any kind of institutionalized religion was about that they were worthy." It
Yes.
was always about being earning that.
And it was like a contradiction. Yeah, you need to earn your worthiness. You need to earn, you need to prove that you're worthy to heavens. And at the same time, it was like, or it is like the unconditional love from God. So the truth is that God loves us unconditionally. But when we are in the religion, it's like, but you need to prove me that you are worthy. And it was like, so it was very confusing for me, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
need to
because you're
prove.
being told that there's a deity that is unconditional, which unconditional, audience, it means I love you without any conditions. I don't care what you do. I don't care who you are. I
Yeah,
don't care anything. I love you. But
yeah,
then we had this whole institution come in and say, well, it's unconditional, but it
yes,
is conditional. And then
exactly.
we have to figure out, well, how can we be good enough?
Yes, yes, and you need to. I mean, it's like okay, we have like the Ten Commandments, okay, and it's like we have values, and you need to respect that, and I totally agree with that. I mean, I completely agree with the commandments and the values. Yes, but now that we've been I've been rediscovering myself and understanding really the unconditional love from God is like it doesn't make any sense that we are not worthy or that we are not good enough, right? And I remember once, very quick, I want to share this with you, my dear Tracy, and our beautiful audience. I was like talking with my dad. He's now back in the spiritual world. Well, we're always there, but he's not in this physical reality anymore. But I remember that I told him once, he was my father, right? And he was a loving father in his own way. And in this talk, I was like, okay, Dad, do you love me? And he was like, yes, I love you. And I was like, they say that God loves us unconditionally. And that because at that particular day, I just came back from this mass, Sunday mass, and the priest, he was saying, talking about the unconditional love from God to us. So I asked my dad, they say that God loves us unconditional. And that as a matter of fact, if you are a parent and you love your kids, multiply that love like infinite. And that's the way that God loves us. And he was like, well, I love you deeply. You and your brothers, I mean, your brother and sister, they are everything to me. You are the love of my lives. So I was like, well, imagine how much God loves us, right? So I was aware to perceive this love from God. And at the same time, I was feeling not good enough. I was feeling unworthy of the love of God. Does that make sense?
See, yes,
See,
because
yes.
because uh, I'm going to say because we're told that all the time, but I don't know. I really think like I know my parents, maybe your parent too. It's like really they were I bet you when they were kids and growing up they were questioning that too because how many times your parents like I know your dad and my dad would say, "Oh my God, I love you and I adore you." But at the same time they did things that didn't feel very loving and adoring towards us sometimes.
Yeah.
And I like it. I remember Abraham Hicks talking about this. This was years ago when they said, there's nothing like somebody yelling at you, your parent, and then saying, and the reason why I'm yelling at you is because I love you. And
It
you're like,
was
so what is love?
exactly. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
is unconditional love?
What
It's like,
is?
because yelling at people and then saying, and then by the way, I love you. It's like,
Yes.
well, that's kind of strange. So
You're
yeah,
making me
it's
feel awful. And at the same time, you're telling me that you love me. It is very confusing for a kid,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's yeah. So you're like, okay, so all right. So the when we were talking about unconditional love and worthiness, it's like that was a big thing for me because I don't think all my life I really knew what that meant for a lot of it because there was just so many conditions put around love. It's like
Mhm.
if you act this way, then I'll love you. And not only people asking of you, but have you found, Lydia, maybe not so much anymore, of course, and both of us maybe not so much anymore, but I'm sure there was a times in your life that you can even say, well, I might have said too that I love that person more when they behave in the way I like.
Yeah, and I remember, and I'm writing down so many conditions about love. And Abraham Hicks, they say, like, um about these conditions, that again, we are the ones putting those conditions, something like that, because again, God loves us unconditionally, right? It's like we are the ones putting those conditions. And that's what I
Yeah.
was going to say something else, but it's gone. And that's okay. We always say what we want to say. And Bashar says, look at your dictionary about unconditional, no conditions. You are loved by all that is. Perhaps you have you had like a not very loving experience during your childhood, from your parents, from your family, and perhaps you don't know how it feels, or there's still some things to explore within your childhood. But the moment that we realize, truly integrate the concept of unconditionality, no conditions, from God, from source, from all that is, we can tap into that love. We can start feeling that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And maybe where people might get tripped up is that you can, by the way, you're always tapped into it. It's whether or not you recognize it, wouldn't you say,
Exactly.
Lydia? And so the big thing is that if you want to feel unconditional love from others, or even from what do you call, if you can call it universe, all it is,
Mm.
God, we don't care what name you give to it. It's like
Yes.
creator. It's like you have to accept yourself and be unconditional to yourself. I'll never forget, like I was in my 20s and I was talking to a therapist and I was so upset that I'd been rejected in a relationship.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, I unconditionally love those people. How could they basically do that? And
Mm.
this therapist, I was very lucky because she looked at me because she knew me and she said, really? She goes, how can you love anybody unconditionally when you don't love yourself unconditionally?
That's a very good question.
And boy, it's like she stopped me in my tracks. I
Yeah.
couldn't play victim anymore. Like, oh, I'm the victim because I can, it's like, well, she's right. I did not in my 20s love myself unconditionally. No way.
No way. So you would say that we need to, everything starts with us, right? So we need to love ourselves unconditionally, right?
Right.
That's a
And
very powerful, yeah.
no, and go ahead. That was a very powerful statement, right?
It is very powerful statement and beautiful audience. The moment that I realize about that, what Tracy's, what you are sharing with us, my dear Tracy, like, how can I love my loved ones, my my family unconditionally if I don't love myself unconditionally? And guess what happened? Don't tell nobody, okay? Don't tell anybody. I'm going to tell you this secret.
Secretos.
Secreto, okay? I was able and aware, and it happened like it was the knowledge, the realization was pouring in my physical mind. Oh my God, I am not loving them unconditionally. And I faced that. I faced that with so much responsibility because I was like, I'm not loving myself unconditionally. Therefore, and of course, I am putting condition on my loved ones. And I accepted that. And guess what happened?
What?
And I'm going to tell you, I started to feel within that love towards me and towards my loved ones. I started to perceive them as perfect as they are, no matter what. And yes, of course, sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, how come? I mean, why are you doing this? Why are you? But it's just like a moment. It is not something that is in the background, right? Like that noise, judging my loved ones' actions, my friends, my family actions. It's like now I am aware, and the moment that I catch myself that I'm judging, that I'm putting a condition, is like, oh, hold on, hold your horses. They are perfect as they are. My friends are perfect. My family, they are perfect. The people that I love, and everyone is perfect, but the people that I love, that I'm focusing on, They are perfect, just as I am perfect right now. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes perfect sense. And for audience, if you haven't like practiced that yet, you might be thinking, uh, that sounds hard. Um, because if I could just get my partner or that neighbor to act differently, I'd be like in heaven. I think one of the things that maybe you'll know when you're doing it is for the audience, not for you, Lydia. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's like is when you're judging something and you're not being conditional, I mean unconditional when you're judging something as right or wrong. And that's something that has been indoctrinated probably since the day you were born too. You were taught this is right, this is wrong.
Yeah.
And you have to undo that. So you want to, again, it gets back to being kind to yourself. And I'm going to give little examples, like even if you're, I know women do this, I don't know about men, but men probably have something they do. They'll walk
Uh-huh.
by a mirror and go, oh my God, I look bad today, or whatever. They'll say something. I go, basically what you're telling yourself is you're not good enough in that moment.
Yes, and we're going to talk about in our next show about forgiveness, okay? That it is related to the topic of feeling good enough, feeling worthy, to love ourselves unconditionally. It is very related. So, to wrap things up, my dear Tracy, uh, I would like to say to the audience, ground yourself, accept the fact that how much or am I really loving myself unconditionally, and be aware the way that you are perceiving your loved ones, and be aware of that judgment part that
Ooh. And um, no, I can't hear you. Okay, and everyone, my last words to you is, and they're pretty blunt and strong, is that you've been lied to all of your life. You are worthy, and you're going to have to undo that. Just undo it. It was a lie.
yes,
It was a
yes,
lie.
it was a
Quit
lie.
lying. Quit lying to yourself.
Exactly. And remember, beautiful audience, if you resonate with this, like, that is helping us a lot. Subscribe, and you can share it, this episode, to whomever you feel that is going to serve. Help us and the algorithm as well. Have the best week ever, and
Woohoo! LOA losers.
ciao for now.